Hey everyone, welcome back to the Recovery Channel. Last week we did part 1 of how to have boundary conversations, and we gave you some guidelines and a demonstration. It would be nice if we could just leave it there, but like I said, the person you are talking to might not react well to you trying to set boundaries with them. They may feel that you're judging them, punishing them, or taking something away. They may feel that you're overreacting and going overboard with your recovery efforts. They may feel you're dragging them into your problems when they have nothing to do with them. Whatever the reason for the resistance, it is important that you don't back down. The reason you are insisting on the boundary is because you need it for your own health. When it comes to sobriety, there is nothing more important than protecting it in any way you can. It might just be a matter of life and death. But being resolved does not mean you have to be obstinate or aggressive in your response to obstacles. In fact, a much more effective method is to be empathetic, compassionate, and understanding of the other person's feelings, all while remaining assertive. This is true of pretty much any conversation where there is disagreement. Hearing and validating the other person's feelings is key. For our boundary conversation, here are the guidelines for dealing with obstacles. 1. Don't get defensive. Hear the person out and listen to what they're saying. 2. Practice reflective listening. Make eye contact, lean in, show that you're listening, don't interrupt them. Ask questions for clarification. Repeat back what they said in your own words. Ask, so did I understand you correctly? And allow them to clarify. Empathize. I feel your pain and can totally understand why this is stressful for you and why you feel like you do. Empathy means feeling the other person's emotions, not in your mind, but in your heart. Really try to feel what they are feeling and express to them that you get it. 4. It may be wise to take a break at this point in conversation, depending on what they shared with you. Don't rush it. You could say something like, listen, what you just told me was really intense, and I want to just leave it here for now. I'm going to think more about what you said and let it sink in. We'll come back to this tomorrow. 5. When you continue the conversation, reassure the person that it is not about judging or punishing them. You need to do this because sobriety is the most important thing in your life right now, and you have to do everything in your power to protect it. Acknowledge that this is going to be hard on them, that you're sorry and you wish there were another way, but right now you have to do this for yourself. 6. If they keep throwing out different obstacles, repeat the above process. Keep coming back to the fact that this is not personal. It's about your issues and you need to do what you need to do for your own survival. 7. It's okay to compromise and be flexible, to come up with a plan that will work for you both, but do not compromise on the boundary itself. 8. If it gets too heated or the person starts attacking you personally, call a timeout. Tell them that this is really important, but you're having trouble staying focused and need to stop for now. You'll try again later when you've both had some time to reflect. Set up a time for that to happen. 9. Most times, if the other person feels like you've really listened to them and understand their point of view, they will be willing to compromise. But sometimes they're just not going to accept the boundary. If that happens, you can calmly tell them that whether or not they accept it, the boundary is there and the consequences are real. So last week, I presented to Christy my boundary, and we cut it off where I just said my piece. She's now going to be responding to that. So what we're going to do is just show you a real quick Reader's Digest version of my initial conversation with her, and then we'll go to Christy's response to that. I need to not be around you if you're tipsy when you're tipsy, and so I'd really appreciate your help with that if you can. To just help me with that. Like I said, it's not your problem, it's my problem. I'm the alcoholic, and I own that, but I do need help. So that's my ask.
So this is really hard for me because we've had several of these conversations, and I'm glad you're sober. I'm glad you're doing this stuff and taking it seriously. And I've been really supportive. I've helped you clear out the alcohol. We don't drink in the house. I don't drink out at restaurants. And now, I'm not supposed to do it socially. It's totally unfair. You're treating me like I'm the alcoholic with a problem, and it's really your problem.
hear you, sweetie. What I hear you saying is that you've already been really supportive. You've basically done everything I've asked, even when that means a sacrifice for you, and that now it's kind of crossing the line, and I'm asking you in your own social time to also be supportive of me and not even drink when you're not around me. And I get that really feels unfair to you. Am I understanding?
Yes.
Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. And again, I wish I didn't have to ask this, and I get that it feels unfair, but again, I wish I didn't have to ask, but I do have to ask. I just can't be around you when you've been drinking. So I would really appreciate your support on that.
But do you really understand? Because it is really unfair. Because when I was on my diet last year, who sat down at night with a bowl of ice cream and ate right in front of me? I would have loved to have had your support to help me with not having those temptations and being triggered, but I got no support. And you just happily ate your ice cream.
Oh my, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea. But as you're saying it and I'm thinking about it now, like, yeah, duh, how inconsiderate that was of me to do that when you were struggling and fighting temptation, and here I am chowing away on a bowl of ice cream. I had no idea. I wish you had said something, because I am not putting this back on you, but I had no idea. I'm you know me, I'm kind of clueless, and if you had said something, I could have not done that. But again, that's not your fault, and I'm so sorry that happened.
But if I had said something, would you have really supported me the way I'm supporting you?
Not while I was drinking, but in my right mind, the way I am now, the way I'm trying to be, absolutely. I want to support you the same way I'm being asked to be supported. So I'm really sorry that happened, and I wish I could go back and change it, because now, again, thinking about it, how clueless of me to do that. So I really regret that, and I'm sorry, and I'm glad you brought it up now, because I would like to make an amends to you for that in a different conversation. But again, I gotta keep going back to asking for your support again, and with the knowledge that I understand you feel like it's unfair and that I was not there for you when you needed me. I will, again, I want to address that, and we can talk about that in a separate conversation, but for now I just need to kind of come back to the no drinking thing.
Well, you just hit another nerve, and I'm sure you're going to tell me this is going to be a separate conversation, but I haven't felt supported. And you'll remember the knockdown drag out we had that night in the restaurant when you got so drunk and so mad you just took off and left me there. You totally forgot my purse was in the trunk of the car, because who wouldn't let me bring my bag into the restaurant? You said, don't lug that big old bag into the restaurant. And then you left me stranded. I had to borrow a cell phone, call my girlfriend, get my girlfriend to come pick me up and take me home. Yes, this feels really unfair given all the stuff I have been through with you.
Okay. I feel you. I can hear your frustration and your anger right now, and I understand. And that was a really awful night, and I can't. There's no justification. There's no excuse in the world that is gonna help with that. And right now I'm feeling pretty shamed and triggered myself. So I'd like to call a timeout so that I can go and kind of collect myself, because I'm losing focus really bad right now, and you're pretty angry. So if we could just kind of put a pause in this for like an hour so I can go away and kind of think about what you just told me and come back to it. I'd really appreciate that. So let's say 3 o'clock. We can pick this up again.
Fine.
Hey, thanks again for your patience. I know it's not easy to stop a conversation so abruptly, but I was definitely getting stirred up and super agitated, and I just needed to step away so I could calm down and kind of collect myself to continue the conversation. So I appreciate your patience and coming back to this. So, I really appreciate your openness and your sharing that, you're frustrated. You feel like you've given me a whole lot of support and this feels unfair. And you brought up some things from the past that are really painful for you. And I definitely want to address those things with you. I'm actually working on my amends with you, and we'll talk about those things, and we'll have a chance to have a dialogue around those past things. So I appreciate you bringing them up because it raises some awareness for me, things I didn't know before, and I definitely want to address those. So thank you for bringing those up. But I got to just bring it back around to my sobriety and how important it is for me to not be around you when you're tipsy. It's like I said, it's just too triggering. I don't have the strength to withstand that trigger. It happened last week, and I almost lost it. So I gotta be very clear and insist that not happen.
Fine.
As you've probably figured out by now, by watching our videos, we try not to sugarcoat things around here. Recovery is not easy for most people, and we'd be doing you a disservice by making it sound too simple. Making your amends and having boundary conversations are definitely one of the hard parts, and what we just demonstrated is not that unusual. On a side note, Christy and I have actually gotten pretty good at sharing our feelings and making it safe for each other, which has drastically changed our relationship for the better. But that took 5 years of couples counseling with a very good therapist. It is nearly impossible, in my opinion, for two people who are entrenched in addiction and codependency to work things out on their own. They are too busy trying to prove that the other person is the problem to experience meaningful healing in the relationship. But I digress. Let's get back to the boundaries. Since we have no control over the other person and they have their own set of issues, it is possible that they will violate the boundary you set with them. It's important to remember that this does not make them a bad person, and their violation is not something you should take personally. If you stayed calm and followed the guidelines by making your boundary very clear, you did your part. There are a lot of reasons that a person might violate a boundary, and none of them have anything to do with you. This is about them. But remember, that doesn't make them a bad person, and you should not judge them. Just as you are free to make your own decisions in life, they are as well. Even if we don't agree with it or like it, we need to accept that they made their decision for their own reasons. There are 2 things I want you to take away from this segment. One is that you need to be prepared for situations where your boundary might not be respected. If you are going to a family function and you've asked that no one drink, be prepared for if someone does drink. If you're hanging out with friends, be prepared that one of them might use. This does not mean that you need to live your life in fear, but it does mean you should be prepared. For example, take your own car to the event so you are not dependent on someone else for a ride. Have an excuse to leave ready in case you need it. Know your plan for taking care of yourself and protecting your sobriety before you head into a situation so you can execute it when needed. The second takeaway is that while we do not judge or criticize the person for making their decision, we do need to stand firm on the boundary that we set. If you followed the guidelines, you told the person what the consequence would be if they violated the boundary. Depending on the impact and the severity of the offense, it's okay to give the person another chance, but be very, very clear this is the only warning. Remember, the reason you are insisting on the boundary is because you need it for your sobriety, and there is nothing more important than that right now. Without sobriety, everything else in your life is in jeopardy. Again, you do not have to be angry or act angry during the confrontation. The calmer you are, the more impact it will have. The violation conversation looks a lot like the original one. 1. Be assertive but not angry. Stay calm. If you're already angry, wait until you calm down. 2. Recap the original conversation. Remind the person why the boundary is important to you. 3. Ask the person why they think they did what they did. Do this in a non-judgmental way. Don't say, "What were you thinking?" That's judgmental. Or, "Don't you care about me?" That's taking it personally. Instead, say something like, "I'm curious what your reasons were for doing that. I'd like to understand." 4. Practice reflective listening. Make eye contact, lean in, show that you're listening. Don't interrupt. Ask questions for clarification. Repeat back what they said in your own words. Ask, "So, did I understand you correctly?" Allow them to clarify. 5. If appropriate, empathize with them the way we talked about in part 1. They may just say, "I don't know why I did it," in which case you can just skip this step. It's not necessary to push them for a reason. 6. Let the person know that you understand that this is difficult and the boundary may seem unfair to them. Let them know that this is hard for you too. You can address anything they brought up, but again, don't get defensive, justify yourself, or make any judgment statements about the other person. 7. Restate the boundary and the reason for it briefly. Let the person know that this is their one and only warning, and if it happens again, the consequence will be enforced. Or, if you feel that another chance is not warranted, enforce the consequence now. 8. Again, if it gets too heated or the person starts attacking you personally, call a timeout. Tell them this is really important, but you're having trouble staying focused, and you'll pick it up later. 9. Close the conversation by saying that you're really sorry that it has come to this and you truly regret needing to take the action, but it's just something that you need to do for yourself. You care for the other person, but you're no good to anyone if you can't stay sober. This might be different in the future, but for right now, this is what you need. Let's see what this conversation looks like. "Hey, sweetie, I needed to talk to you about something about last night. Is now a good time to talk?"
Sure.
Okay. Well, I noticed that you came home from your work function and you had definitely been drinking, and I could tell. And I'm just, given the conversation that we had last week, I'm just curious why you made that decision.
All right. So, Thursday nights are our team meeting. And being in sales, that's like alcohol is everywhere. And I moderate it. It's not like I'm the alcoholic. I have a drink. But for me, not to drink in that setting is weird because I've always socially drank there. And I'm trying to honor your confidentiality and not share your private stuff. So if I show up not drinking, it's going to be a little weird. And I'm trying to get that promotion. So I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to schmooze. I'm trying to make things happen. And I don't really know that one drink made me tipsy.
Okay, well, so I understand. So you feel like it would be super awkward to not drink in that situation because it's your sales meeting. It's the after work happy hour, and you're trying to schmooze with the boss a little bit. So you feel like it's just too awkward and weird to not drink, and you don't want to out me to say, "Oh, I'm not drinking because my husband's a drunk." So am I getting that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I understand, and I get that you're doing what you feel like you need to do from your professional life perspective. But again, like I can't see you tipsy like that. I just can't do it. I almost broke down and drank. So I have to do something about it, and I don't know what to do, because if you really feel like that's something you've got to do and I can't be around you when you're drinking, that kind of leaves us in a tough spot, and I feel like I'm gonna just have to be somewhere else, like maybe stay somewhere else for a while until I can handle it.
Oh, okay. Wait, like move out?
Yeah, I'll get my own place for a bit.
Okay, that's pretty drastic. That feels very punitive.
This is not about punishment. This is about me protecting my sobriety, because I'm no good to anybody if I'm drinking, and I gotta do what I gotta do. I don't want to move out, but if that's the only way that I can not be around you when you're drinking, then that's something I'm gonna have to do.
that seems too extreme.
Well, all right, so...
I mean, I get that you need to protect your sobriety, but, like, how is that going to help our relationship if you move out?
Well, it's definitely going to not help our relationship if I start drinking again. So...
Okay, good point.
So how about this? Is it really just Thursday nights that you feel like you need to...
Now I feel on the spot, but I would say mostly it's Thursday night. And then, like, occasionally my girlfriend's, like, a birthday celebration or a dinner out with a girlfriend. Like, we get together occasionally.
Okay. So how we do this? My sister's been asking for some relief during the week because, you know, they're newly married, they got kids, and she's always complaining about not having a date night. So how about if Thursday nights I volunteer to watch her kids for her, and so that they can have a date night, and then, you know, I'd be coming home at 10, 11 at night, you're already in bed, that way I don't have to see it, and, you know, that, I think that's a workable compromise. And if you're going out with your girlfriends and you know you're going to be drinking, you know, I'll find something else to do and not be in the house while you're out.
Okay,
I don't know.
What are you going to just go do to not, like, what are you going to do on the nights that I go out with my girlfriends? Just not having a plan does not make me feel comfortable.
That's a great point. There's a AA meeting around here pretty much every night of the week. So on those days I know where you will be drinking, I'll hit an AA meeting, and then I'll go out with my sponsor afterwards, and we'll grab some ice cream maybe.
Oh!
Does that work? I mean, that sound like it might be a good compromise because it gets me.
Well, it feels a lot better than you moving out.
Okay. Well,
and let's try it and see how it goes.
Okay, that's great. I'm really glad we could come up with a compromise. So, you know, we've agreed that Thursday nights I'll go babysit for my sister. If you know you're going to be out with your girlfriends, then I'll come up with arrangements to go to a meeting, be with my sponsor, basically make myself busy where I'm not home, and I'll come home later. So that's great, and definitely give that a try. But again, I just have to be really, really insistent that the boundary is I can't be around you when you're tipsy. So if there's some exception to this arrangement, we got to plan for it ahead of time, because again, I can't be surprised by it, and it's just too risky. So let's go with that. I bet you can guess what your homework is for this week. Practice again, this time with another person, and have them throw out some objections so you can practice handling them. It's okay to have a cheat sheet with you of the guidelines, and take your time. When you're done, ask the other person how you did. Were they clear on what your boundary is and why it's important? Did they feel like you were judging them? Did they feel like you listened to them and understood their perspective? Please do not beat yourself up if you don't get it right the first time. Like I said, my wife and I have been practicing this for like 5 years, and we still struggle with it. Give yourself some grace and keep practicing. It does get easier with time. Speaking of not getting it right the first time, as I was editing this week's video, I realized that I didn't do a very good job of showing you what empathy looks like. That just goes to show how hard it is in the moment, even when you're trying. So let me do that now so you can hear what it sounds like. Many people confuse empathy with sympathy, but they're not the same thing. Simply put, sympathy is feeling bad for someone. Empathy is feeling bad with someone. Beyond understanding how they feel, you feel what they feel. So when Christy brought up the restaurant incident, an empathetic response would sound something like this. Oh man, that hurts my heart. The humiliation you must have felt after being yelled at and then abandoned in front of all those people, and then having to ask somebody to borrow a phone on top of it. I can feel the deep sense of shame and anger you must have gone through. I am so sorry to put you through that. You can hear the difference here. I'm not just looking back at the scene and saying, wow, that must have sucked for you. I'm letting myself experience it as she did. Now, when I'm the reason she felt that way, I need to take myself out of the equation for a minute. I need to set aside my own shame and defensiveness so I can stand in her shoes and imagine how she must have felt. Sorry for making this video even longer, but I did promise you to show you what empathy sounds like, so I just wanted to squeeze that in. That's it for this week. We'd love to hear your comments on this content and your stories of trying it out. My thanks to my lovely wife, Christy, for helping out for the past couple of weeks and reliving some of the painful moments from our past. Our demonstrations were not what our conversations looked like, but in preparing the content, we were reminded of a pretty dark period in our lives. We're glad that's behind us, and we're living proof that recovery is possible today.